What is up, guys? Wolfgang here. So today I'm going to record a video on my thoughts on the new Anker GaN Prime chargers. Now this is going to be a long video, so the chapters are down below if you want to skip around and see specific devices, but I will be covering each one individually and, well, saying what I think about each device. Now then, what's quote-unquote new about the Anker GaN Prime chargers is, well, everything they mention here. So, well, it is definitely more efficient than previous technologies for charging. They are smaller chargers, and, well, that's pretty much where the GaN advantages end. After that, they're not anything lower. There's no negatives really to it. Perhaps the price, but there's not really negatives to it. Now, what Anker is also including with these new chargers is the Power IQ 4.0, which dynamically adjusts how much power a device consumes or is given. That way, it can charge all the devices as fast as possible. So, like I mentioned, they're smaller than the normal chargers. And lastly, well, these new chargers have Active Shield 2.0, which basically just means that it will make sure that it doesn't cook itself. So these are the 6 devices that they show in the video on the release date of these devices. But, well, I highly don't recommend watching that video. It's mostly just marketing speak. And, well, I'll be covering all the details on each one of these devices in this video. Before we go into that, I did want to mention the Volta Giga charger, which is on currently in Indiegogo. I did support this campaign and I still have not received my charger. So, well, mixed bags of emotions right there. But, well, basically this device is what would be competing against the new Anker chargers. This one was supposed to be released before, but, well, like I mentioned, I still haven't received my item, and, well, their devices are not on their website yet, so take it as you will. So here are the sizes on the 130 watt and the 200 watt models. And, well, the 200 watt model is the one I personally bought, as it can output much more power at the same time. So here are the power outputs for the 200 watt model, and I am happy that they disclose these quite openly and with specific numbers, as in a bit you'll see why I am a bit annoyed by Anker, but these are the 200 watt load outputs combinations that you can make. And then for the 130 watt model, which is a bit smaller and, well, outputs a bit less power, or, well, 70 watts less power, which is quite a bit. Here are the load output combinations you can make. Once again, truly happy that they disclose these numerically. And yeah, you can figure out if any of these devices are useful to you. However, I would recommend at this point to wait for reviewers and for it to be on the Volta website. I do trust in Volta, but, well, the Indiegogo has taken quite a bit to ship to my address. All right, so let's go into each of these devices individually. So the Anker 735 charger is the 65 watt GaN charger that they're releasing. Now you can see it has 2 Type C's and 1 Type A, and the price is $60. Pretty good price, I'd say. And so if we go down here, most of this is just marketing speak. I already mentioned it earlier. But what I do want to talk about on all of these is the charging guide as well. This is what annoyed me previously, as they don't disclose exactly how much each port is able to output. Now, with the Power IQ 4.0, the outputs will be changing, at least according to what they mentioned. But I would prefer to at least them demonstrate what is the max output of each port when all 3 are connected. That way we could have a better idea. So while charging 3 devices, you can expect maybe something around 30 watts for your computer, 20 watts for a phone perhaps, and something like 5 to 10 watts maybe for other devices. Now, although it is very little charge and would slow charge a phone, for most USB Type-A devices, so something like a smartwatch or wireless earbuds, that is enough power and it will charge up. Using 2 ports, well, you're still dividing 65 watts between 2 ports on this case, 65 ports between the Type-C and the Type-A, and the configuration I do not recommend to use on any of these chargers is the bottom Type-C and the Type-A, as you're splitting 24 watts between 2 ports, and, well, you're definitely not using the most that you could be. And well, while using a single port, the Type C's can go up to 65 watts and the Type A can go up to 22.5 watts. And well, this number is going to be repeated quite a few times as most of the chargers do get to 22.5 watts on the Type A port. For the Anker 737 120 watt charger, this is the one I would recommend to almost anyone. The only issue is with the price, but we'll get into that in a bit. So this one has a bit more than double the power output than the last one. And well, it is definitely useful when we get to the charging guide. So while using a single port, you can output 100 watts on any of the two Type C ports individually, of course, only using one at a time. That is enough to charge pretty much any laptop on the market, unless you are gaming on the laptop, in which case it might start to discharge slowly. And well, that's not really the charger's fault. That is just the computer consuming more electricity than what this can provide. And well, the Type A port once again goes up to 22.5 watts. While using two ports, now you're splitting 120 watts between the two Type C's or the top Type C and Type A, which we can expect something like 75 watts on the top one and 45 watts on the bottom one, which is definitely a really good number. And on the Type C and Type A, I would expect something like 100 watts on the top and 20 watts on the bottom. That would be an ideal situation, of course. And well, once again, don't use this configuration as you'll be sharing 24 watts on the bottom Type C and Type A port. And well, while using all three, you get 120 watts between the three. Due to Power IQ 4.0, there really isn't a way to guess how much each port can output. It will depend more on what devices you connect. This is definitely better than the previous charger. Now then, going now to the Anker 747, which is the device I would prefer to go up to. As with the previous one, it was $95. With the 747, it is $109. So you're paying what, 15 bucks more for 30 watts, which will be better if you have higher power consuming devices, as it can output more power simultaneously. So getting to the charging guide, while using a single port, you can output 100 watts on any of the Type C ports and well 22.5 watts on the Type A. While using two ports, we're splitting 150 watts between the Type C ports if you're using two Type Cs, which well is an excellent amount for each port and it makes it very flexible. Once again, do not use the Type A and Type C as you'll be splitting 24 watts only. Now if we go to the 3-port charging, we can see 150 watts between each of the single ports. That would be, a max around an output of 50 watts each if we were going an equal amount. For example, connecting three exact devices with the exact same amount of power, as Power IQ will change how much power each port is outputting. But that is definitely more power to be able to charge devices simultaneously faster. Once again, Type C that's adjacent to the Type A is not the best one to use with the Type A, as it will lower the amount quite a bit. And lastly, while using all four, you could expect that it would go up to 150 watts. Now I'm expecting these two to share 24 watts once again, and then these two to use the remaining power, which is around 120-ish watts, which is still more than enough for many devices. Now then, getting to a more interesting device, we have the Anker 733 power bank. Now this one's pretty cool because it's a hybrid between a normal wall charger and a battery, although it is on the chunky side. And well, for a battery bank, the ports are on a strange position, but for the flexibility, it is validated to exist in my opinion. Now then, getting into the charging guide, you can see that there is options for the wall charging or using battery charging. So off the wall, using a single port, you can expect 65 watts off of any of the Type C ports, which is a good amount of output for most laptops and pretty much any other device, and 22.5 watts out of the USB Type A. And while using on power, it pretty much halves the Type C ports. But, well, if you're on the go, I would be expecting you to be charging something like a phone or at most a tablet, which 30 watts is definitely capable of charging at decent speed. Now using two ports, well, it does start to get a little bit dicey in my opinion, but 45 watts on the first Type C and 20 watts on the second Type C. Well, I think that's a decent amount of power, although 20 watts, I would wish would get to 25 just to get to something like a Samsung super fast charging. but well, for 45 watts for a laptop is good enough. And once again, don't use type A and type C, or in the bottom type C specifically, as it will limit those both to share 15 watts, which is not much. And then while using it on power, once again, it somewhat halves the amount of power that it can output, especially because any ports you use will be sharing 15 watts, which means, yeah, it's pretty slow charging. But once again, I would expect if you're using the portable charger, you're charging something like a phone and so on and so forth, something lower consuming, which I mean, the flexibility is definitely what justifies the existence of this device. And lastly, while using all three ports on wall charging, you will be sharing 65 watts between the three. I'd be expecting something like 15 watts shared between the bottom type C and the type A port, and then the top port to be outputting something maybe around 40, 45-ish. I don't think it can output 45 due to the amount of power that this would be using, but well, Power IQ 4.0. It will be the constant excuse for my assumptions, but they don't give us much information here. And well, while using the portable charger, you'll be getting 15 watts between the three, which will be charging your devices very slowly. Now then, new device, a very interesting one, which I thought was quite silly for it to exist, but I think it's fine in the end. So the Anker 615 USB power strip. Now this one's interesting so it plugs into a single power outlet, and then we'll give you another power outlet, two type C's and a type A. So getting into the charging guide, while using all three, well, you can see the devices will start to charge slower. However, in this device, I don't mind it as much as being a power strip and having a additional power connector. I hope that this one is uninterrupted, which means you can use your laptop's own charger, charging it at basically uh, somewhere around its max charging speed. So I think that's fine when using all three. As well, with the other ports on the device, you'd be charging something like maybe a tablet, a phone, and maybe your earbuds or something like that. And well, those devices don't require as much power as a computer would. Now, while using two ports, luckily these ports are labeled as I would like them to be, so you can just add any of these wattages individually, and that will be the output of the device itself. While using a single port, both type Cs are capable of outputting up to 65 watts, which is enough for most laptops. Now then, getting into the Anker 727 power station. Now that is, well, interesting to see that it has a single power outlet connection, and then it splits it into two. And well, that definitely does seem a bit stretching it, especially because it also has some type C ports and some type A ports here at the bottom. And well, I would like that to be a wireless charger, but it is not listed anywhere. But yeah, let's get into it. Now then, the Type C ports can output up to 100 watts, charging something like a laptop at really high speeds. And while the Type A ports can output up to 12 watts each, which is enough for smaller devices. Using two ports at a time, this graph is a bit harder to look at, so if you want to pause the video and check it out, you can do that, or even go to the website. But, well, using both Type C ports, you can expect 65 watts on the first and 30 watts on the second. Using a Type C and a Type A port, you can expect around 45 watts on the Type C and 12 watts on the Type A. And, well, that will depend on which Type C port you're using, as you can see in these two. And if you're using both Type A's, they're sharing 15 watts, which is for charging devices at a slower rate, or that don't require as much power. While using three ports, well, you can expect somewhere around 45 watts for the first Type C, 30 watts for the second Type C, and 12 watts for the USB A ports. And well, you'll be expecting 45 watts on the first Type C, 30 watts on the second, and sharing 15 watts between the two Type A ports. Now, as this device does have two power outlets, I expect them to be uninterrupted, but well, of course, it will have its limits. I unfortunately don't have anything on hand to be able to test that, but well, your mileage may vary. I would recommend to plug in lower consuming devices to this one though. Now, those were the 6 main devices that they announced in the video and that they have promotional webpage. But I wanted to go to the store itself to show you guys 2 other devices that they don't really advertise as loudly. You can see here the 735, the 737, and the 745 is not here because it's not out yet, which is the 150 watt model. However, the 717 is one that is not in the picture, and you can see right here that it has 140 watts of output with only one Type-C port. So, well, you can pretty much tell what that means. This single port is able to output up to 140 watts of power, which is a lot of power, and is able to charge higher end devices, something like a MacBook 16-inch or any other high-end Windows laptop. Although me personally, I would really heavily think on what I will be using the charger for, as this one only has a single port, but can output up to 140 watts. However, if we go to the 747, it has a similar price, and well, the output is 10 watts more, however, it has a lot more ports. Now, a single Type-C port, as we saw in the charging guide, is only able to output 100 watts, which, like I mentioned, is more than enough for pretty much any laptop, but it will not be as fast as the 717, which will charge much faster. So you really got to consider what you prefer, to have more ports or to charge a single device faster. That really just depends on what you want. I can't really recommend it. It will depend on your circumstance. So if you have any questions or want a suggestion, just let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to help you out with that. And then the second device they don't really advertise as loudly is this power bank right here, which is the Anker 737 power bank. Now, we did see the 733, which is a hybrid between a power plug and a power bank. This one is only a power bank. So if we go to the website, you can see it's sold out, and it's for a good reason, as I am also interested in this power bank. It has 24,000 milliamp hours of charge, which is quite a lot for most circumstances. It is on the chunkier side, as you can see right here, but well, for what it can do, I'm definitely interested. So if we get to the charging guide, you can see that a single port is able to output up to 122 watts of power, which is quite a lot of power. It will charge quickly, although not to the same level as the Anker 717, which got up to 140, but it will charge faster than most of the plugs that we saw earlier. And so it can output 122 watts in any of the two Type-C ports, or it can output 18 watts in the Type-A port. While using two ports, here you can see it will be sharing 140 watts, which is a bit higher of a capacity than what we saw using a single port, which is a bit on the annoying side, but well, it's not a big deal, as it will still be charging both devices at an estimated 70 watts each, which is a lot of power and will charge most devices, so long as you're not gaming on them. And then while using a Type-C and a Type-A port, the Type-C will output 100 watts and the Type-A will output 18 watts. And lastly, using all three, we'll be sharing 122 watts between the two Type-Cs and 18 watts on the Type-A. I'm very interested in buying this charger, and if I do, I'll definitely be making a review on it. Unfortunately, I can't see the price on it, but well, there is one competitor, which was the previous generation, which is the Anker 747 power bank. As a benefit, it does come with a 65 watt charger, and well, it also does come with 2000 milliamp hours more of capacity, and well, it has an extra Type-A port. Between these two, you do have to consider what you prefer, but well, unfortunately, the Anker site does not have a charging guide, but the Amazon one does. So if we go to the same device on Amazon, you can see that the max output of a single Type-C, not using any other ports, just a single Type-C port, is 87 watts, which yes, is a large amount of power for any laptop really. Definitely is not the same as using a single port on the other charger, the newer one, which is 122 watts on a single Type-C port. So we'll be charging something like 35 watts faster, I believe it is. I can't do the quick math right now, but point is that it will be charging faster if you're using the newer power bank. And this just gets even harder to justify when we plug all devices into it. As you can see right here, Well, it'll be splitting the power quite thinly between all 4 ports. So we're expecting 45 watts on the first Type-C port, 18 watts on the second one, and then 15 watts shared between the 2 Type-A ports, which is going to be slower charging for those two. So it really does depend on your device loadout and, well, what you expect to be charging simultaneously. But for most circumstances, I think I would definitely prefer to buy the newer one, especially if it's around the same price. This is definitely a much better deal. Well, that concludes the video, guys. If you have any questions or want some recommendations, you can leave them in the comments and I'll help you out. Now, all I have to say is thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the content, hit the like button. If you want to watch more videos similar to this one, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon if you don't want to miss out when I release a new video. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Have a great day.